Again, welcome to Research Methods in Computers and Society. This is CS312 class. This lectures cover chapter 11 of our course textbook, and the topic is qualitative designs and data collection. Qualitative design and data collection. Understanding what behavior means in context. So again, this lectures cover chapter 11 of our course textbook. And the main objective is to understand the difference between quantitative and qualitative approaches to research. The only thing I would say is in quantitative research, we use quantitative data, which is numerical values. And we can use any data analysis techniques, parametric tests. With qualitative data, we also use qualitative data, which can be a nominal data or ordinal data. Most of these data, we cannot do arithmetic operations on them. So we're also going to familiarize ourselves with participants' observation and in-depth interview. Actually, this is the two main methods of collecting data. That is either by observation or by questionnaire interview. Also, we're going to gain some knowledge on other sources of qualitative data. We are also going to get exposure with unobtrusive method, including the content analysis. We're also going to understand how research can employ mixed methods and the benefits of doing that. Again, a mixed method means we are using both quantitative and qualitative research together. For example, we can use the qualitative method to generate the hypothesis, then we use the quantitative method to analyze the data. So a qualitative research, unlike quantitative research, relies heavily on descriptive language to convey central findings. So qualitative research is almost like a descriptive studies. Then quantitative research will be analytical studies. I will use qualitative research to generate a hypothesis or to generate a theory or a framework of a model. Then I will use the quantitative research to get a result that we are going to apply it to the population. So here we say qualitative research, unlike quantitative research, will rely heavily on descriptive language, while quantitative will rely heavily on analytical language to analyze. Also, qualitative research seeks to represent social phenomena. Now, most of us doing qualitative research means you really want to study some new theory in depth to understand it. So we can generate a theory or generate a new findings from qualitative research, unlike quantitative. So it seeks to represent social phenomena, focusing on how members of a group understand their own subject experiences. Also, qualitative researchers employ the ethnographic fieldwork and also intensive interview as techniques for gathering information. Ethnographic fieldwork is observation. So observation and interview. So qualitative researchers are normally interested in interpreting and also understanding behavior within its context. And the primary goal is to provide a thick description or a vivid account of the social interaction that take place between people. So qualitative designs take an inductive approach to data collection, but the goal also is to move toward theory construction and also theory generation to generate a theory finding and new findings. Also, data in qualitative research can take the form of narrative, often using the words of participants themselves. So this if we make it possible for us to have a questionnaire interview, will be open-ended question, so that the answer will be in the form of narrative. Close-end questions, we have answer, whether true, false, yes, no, etc. But with qualitative research, interviewing, we want open-ended, so the answer will be in the form of explaining narrative or explaining yourself. So there are two ways of data collection techniques, either by observation or by interview questionnaire. So we call the observation the ethnographic fieldwork, which carry out through direct observation, called the participants observation. Then we have the in-depth interview, which normally uses elicitation techniques to draw information from a study participant. Now, during the course of a fieldwork, researchers now can become a participants, observers within a group or organization-based study. So a researcher can take the role of a complete participant. A complete participant means you can be fully involved and also observing the work. A complete observer means you're only observing. And the combination of participants observer means based on the environment, you can be a participant or you can switch to an observer. So what is a complete participant? It's experiencing everything that the participants experience firsthand. So whatever this means, you are involving practically. You are part of the participants now. So we have to be very careful not to be go native. Go native concept is now you, the researcher doing the studies, now you become part of the participants. Instead of you to study the participants, now you are part of it. We also have a complete observer. A complete observer is simply observing without participating. So again, without participating. Also, this may not fully experience the group's culture or understand and appreciate this culture. Then we have the one that goes both ways, either participant or observer. This is more flexible. So you can lean towards a participant or lean towards observer, not both at the same time, based on the environment or based on the study circumstances in the studies. So one of the main issues here, collecting data, either by observation or by interviewing or any method, we need to consider the ethical issues involved. And the main three things we need to consider the participants is their health issues, their security. Also, when we collect their data, we should be very private, confidential. So confidential, security, and protection. Those are the major ethical issues that are bound in the fieldwork in terms of the participants. So researchers are engaged directly, constantly, and also continuously in social interaction with the study participants. So questions arise, including how to inform participants about their role or how to respond to divisions in a group. Also, we have the informants or group members can help in showing you the ropes, especially if they have done these studies before or they were members for some time before you came in. And they can also assist in making connections. So we need to keep record of everything in the studies, especially the work. Document everything you are seeing or hearing. So we should write them soon after an experience, because later they can serve as a place for methodological or theoretical reflection. So the ethnographic fieldwork can bring forth new theories So theory development can be done inductively using the grounded theory method. This study was done in 1967 by Grasser and Strauss. Also, theory development can be done deductively and also occur using a standard case method. And this technique was pioneered by Burawo in 1988. So the in-depth interview, we have three different types of in-depth interview. The interview can be structured, which means it's well organized. We know the type of questions we're going to ask, and every participant get the same question. Now, semi-structured means can be partly structured, partly not structured. So it can be partly organized. We have questions, set of questions we are going to ask all the participants, and not all the data structured. Then unstructured means there's no any organized questions that we have to ask all participants. So we may have two participants, but we may ask two different questions. And mostly to be in the form of narrative way, not too professional. So this is free for all, very flexible. So these are the definition for each of the three interviews. So we say the structured questions compose the interview schedule are worked out ahead of time. So it's organized. So we have all the same. And every participant is asked the same question. Now with the semi-structures, the interviewer uses a schedule, but he also have a freedom to adopt or to adapt during the interview. So he may ask different questions, which is not part of the question. So he may change some things based on environment. Unstructured means, again, there's no interview schedule. There's no any organized questions, just a broad topics and questions. So utilizing in qualitative research, utilizing open-ended question is very important. So we normally utilize open-ended questions in qualitative research, while we utilize close-ended question like yes or no, true, false in quantitative research. For example, how many children you have, you don't want to ask that kind of question in qualitative research. But the answer is very solid at that 4, 3, 2, 1. But how many case you are children you are expecting in the next 4 years, 5 years? In this case, it can be a qualitative question. So we also should pay attention to the answers. So you can have a follow-up. Avoid leading questions and also work to avoid judgment or bias. We should know that maintaining a good rapport is very important. Also, we should allow participants to control the conversation, but you can direct it without leading it. Again, this is in-depth interview. Also, your job is not to show, but rather to be part of the participants. And we should allow the participants to show, describe, or summarize. We should also restate what the participants told you to make sure you understood it. Also, we should tolerate silence and also long pauses. We should also invest in a recorder, read instructions, and test it ahead of time. We should also consider where our interview will occur, the location, very important, or maybe online, as physical location, or telephone. Also, at the start of the interview, we should identify ourselves, the record date, time, and if possible, the location of the interview. This will be the start of the interview. Example, my name is Charles Adeke. Today is Tuesday, November 10, and the time is 5:30. And right now I'm at New York interviewing some participants about so questions or scenarios. We should also keep our eyes on the interview schedule, take notes afterward, and download your audio file. After we finish with interviewing, we should have a thank you note to our participants. The process of using interview is It's a long process. So again, the advice here is that we should practice, practice, and practice to be perfect on it. We should also have a focus group. So interview a focus group is better. Interview a group of participants is better. First, we are going to save cost and also save time. So instead of have 10 people, instead of interview them individually different days or time, if we join these 10 together and they have the same interest, that's the most important. If they all have the same interest, well, we can let them have access to the questions at the same time, and that will be more faster. Also, we should led by a facilitator who directs the discussion. And one of the challenges for focus groups or groups is to managing it. Yeah, we know groups are members of people. Managing is very difficult. Managing people is very difficult. So preparing for a focus group, yeah, we need to establish a rapport and set the tone for the conversation. That's the first thing. Establish the rapport and set the tone for the conversation. Now we should listen carefully to participants. Possibly we should avoid biased expression such as I cannot believe that happened. It's too negative. Make sure participants are representative of the population. Also, we should make sure that the subject know their participation is volunteer and also they ensure confidentiality. Confidentiality. So next is the unobtrusive data collection and also additional sources of qualitative data. So here we say that the unobtrusive data collection means the researcher has no contact with research subjects. So he or she gathers cultural artifacts and traces that the population has left behind. So examples include the physical object, still images, sounds, movie images, and text. Also, in an unobtrusive approach, there is no reactivity between the researcher and also the subject. This is known as the Orton effect. The whole concept of Orton effect is that when you are trying to collect data through observation, sometimes you may observe subject. If the subject knows that you are observing him, he may change his behavior. He or she may adjust his behavior to suit. So that's what we call the Orton effect. This allows you to do research without interacting with others and also allow for the study of historical trends. Also, content analysis is very important. So content analysis is one unobtrusive method. Now, in order to do this, you must first define the universe of content. Example can be country music, songs. Also, there, after that, we narrow the range of observations. Then we code and categorize the content. So sometimes the content is manifested in plain sight, and sometimes it is latent, meaning it is not clear on the surface. So again, it's an interactive process. This is a process we have to keep doing over and over and over again until we get it right. So it's an interactive process where there's no constant back and forth between the material being coded and the coding categories. So we may have a subject perform one research and it take him maybe a week to get the data. Another colleague, same conditions, everything, but maybe again, it may take longer or shorter. So sometimes the content is manifest in a plain sight, and sometimes it's latent, meaning it is not clear on the surface. So it's an interactive process where there's no constant back and forth between the material being coded and the coding categories. So the next is the mixed method. Mixed method is the study that combines the elements of both the qualitative and then the quantitative. Sometimes we may use the qualitative to generate our hypothesis, then we use the quantitative to test our hypothesis. So combining approaches will facilitate the best of both analytic works, answering broad and generalizable questions in depth and in detail. So this will be the conclusion of our chapter 11 course material of our textbook. And in this lectures, again, we discuss about qualitative design. So again, wish everybody the best. If you have any question about the course or the assignment for this week, you can send an email or you can contact me through my cell phone number. So again, thank you very much for your time.